4-year-old homeless girl finds millionaire passed out in a storm drain with a baby, but when she tries to help, someone comes up behind her and does something that shocks everyone. Watch until the end. You won't regret it. Comment what you think is going to happen. Your opinion is very important. And subscribe to my channel to support my work. Your help is very important. The scorching midday sun in Harmony Creek, a small town in upstate New York, made the asphalt of Main Street ripple like water. 4-year-old Lily walked barefoot on the uneven sidewalk stones, her small feet already calloused from months of living on the streets. Her brown hair was tangled, and her little dress was stained from so much wear, but her big eyes held a childlike curiosity that not even abandonment could erase. The girl was heading to the town's farmer's market in search of some fruit she could snatch when the vendors weren't looking. That's how she survived since her parents left her in the park 3 months ago, promising to return and never appearing again. Mrs. Davison, the 67-year-old lady who ran the boarding house nearby, sometimes gave her a plate of food or let her sleep in the backyard when it rained too hard. As she walked, Lily heard a low moan coming from one of the storm drain openings near the market. Curious, she approached slowly. The sound repeated, weaker this time. The girl knelt at the edge of the drain and peered inside. There was someone down there. "Mister? Mister, are you okay?" she called out in her thin voice. A man was lying at the bottom of the drain, partially covered by the shadows. His business suit was torn and covered in mud. In his arms, he held something small, wrapped in a light blue blanket. Lily immediately recognized it. It was a baby. The man moved his head slightly and opened his eyes with difficulty. Christopher Caldwell, owner of the largest construction company in the region, tried to focus his vision. His head throbbed with unbearable pain, and he couldn't remember how he had ended up there. The last few days were a complete blur in his memory. "Help. I need help," he mumbled, trying to get up but feeling a sharp pain in his ribs. Lily looked around, desperate. There weren't many people on the street at that lunchtime hour. She ran to the corner, where she saw a woman in a hospital uniform walking quickly. "Miss, miss!" she shouted, pulling on the hem of the white coat. "There's a hurt man in the storm drain with a baby." Sarah Jenkins, a nurse at the town's hospital, stopped abruptly. Her eyes were red from crying, and she looked like she hadn't slept in days. When she processed the child's words, her heart raced. "A baby? What's the baby like?" she asked, grabbing Lily's small shoulders. "It's in a blue blanket, miss. The man's holding it." Sarah dropped her purse on the ground and ran to the storm drain Lily had indicated. When she looked down and saw the scene, her legs weakened. There was Mikey, her 3-month-old son, who had disappeared 3 days ago along with Dave, her husband. "Mikey! My son!" she screamed, trying to climb down into the drain. "Careful, miss," Lily warned. "The drain's deep." Sarah took a deep breath, trying to maintain the professional calm she had learned at the hospital. She shouted to the people nearby for help, and soon a small crowd formed. With the help of some men, they managed to pull out the baby first, who was dehydrated but breathing, and then Christopher, who could barely stand. "Where's Dave? Where's my husband?" Sarah asked Christopher desperately as soon as he was placed on the ground. Christopher looked at her with a confused expression. I don't know who Dave is. I don't remember anything. How did I get here? Where did this baby come from?" His words were like a bucket of cold water. Sarah quickly examined Mikey, checking his vital signs. The baby was weak but stable. Christopher, on the other hand, had head injuries that suggested a violent fall and possibly some fractured ribs. "We need to get them to the hospital now," Sarah said, her voice trembling, mixing relief at finding her son and despair at the absence of her husband. While they waited for the ambulance that someone had called, Lily remained close, watching everything with her attentive eyes. There was something about that injured man that aroused a strange feeling in her, not fear, but a different kind of curiosity. And the way he looked at the baby, even confused, seemed genuinely worried. "What's your name, mister?" Lily asked, sitting down next to Christopher. Christopher Caldwell," he replied, massaging his forehead. "And you, little one?" "Lily. I'm the one who found you." Christopher looked at that small, dirty child who had saved him from a situation he couldn't even fully understand. There was something in her eyes that touched him deeply, a precocious wisdom mixed with a sweetness that contrasted with her abandoned appearance. The ambulance arrived and took Christopher and Mikey to the hospital, with Sarah accompanying them. Lily stood on the sidewalk, watching the vehicle drive away. Something had changed that day. She could feel it. She didn't know what it was yet, but her life had crossed paths with those people in a way that would change everything for all of them. 3 days had passed since the strange rescue in the storm drain. The town's hospital had never seen so much movement and speculation. Christopher Caldwell, the most well-known businessman in the region, had been found in inexplicable conditions, and the whole town was talking about it. Lily returned to the hospital every morning, sitting on the bench at the main entrance. The security guards already knew her and allowed her to stay there, especially after they learned that she had been responsible for the rescue. The girl couldn't explain why she felt drawn to that place, but something pulled her back every day. Sarah had taken extra shifts at the hospital to stay close to Mikey, who was recovering well from dehydration. But Dave's absence consumed her from within. She had filed a missing person report, but the local police had few resources for complex investigations, especially when there were no clear signs of a crime. "Nurse Sarah," called Dr. Miller, the doctor responsible for Christopher's case. "The patient is awake and lucid. He's asking to speak to you." Sarah left Mikey in the care of a colleague and went to the room where Christopher was hospitalized. She found him sitting on the bed, his head bandaged and an anguished expression on his face. "How are you feeling?" she asked, checking his vital signs automatically. "Physically better, but my head—" Christopher paused, massaging his temples. "Sarah, that's your name, isn't it? I need you to tell me everything about your husband, about how we know each other. There are fragments in my memory, but nothing makes sense." Sarah pulled up a chair and sat next to the bed. "Dave Jenkins, 45 years old, mechanic, works at Tony's garage near the park. We both disappeared 5 days ago. You were found with my son, but Dave—" Her voice choked. "Dave is still missing." "Mechanic," Christopher repeated, as if the word awakened something. "I remember a garage. I remember being angry, very angry, but I can't remember why." At that moment, a nurse entered the room. "Mr. Caldwell, there's a child outside who insists on seeing you. She says she's the one who found you." Christopher smiled for the first time in days. "Lily, you can let her in." The girl appeared in the doorway, still wearing the same dirty clothes from 3 days ago. There was a shyness in her movements, but also a determination that was impressive. "Hi, Mr. Christopher, how are you feeling?" "Better, thanks to you, little one. Come here." Lily approached slowly. There was something about Christopher's presence that reassured her, a sense of security she hadn't experienced in a long time. "Lily," Sarah said softly, "where do you live? Is there anyone taking care of you?" The girl lowered her eyes. "I live on the streets. Sometimes Mrs. Davison lets me sleep in her boarding house when it's raining too hard." Christopher felt a pang in his chest. There was something about that child that awakened in him a protective instinct he didn't know he possessed. "And your parents? They left about 3 months ago. They said they were coming back, but—" Lily shrugged, trying to appear stronger than she really was. "Sarah," Christopher said after a few moments of silence, "I'll be released tomorrow. I need to go to my office, try to understand what happened in the last few days. But first, I want you to help me with something." "What is it?" "I want to take Lily home with me, temporarily, until we find a better solution for her." Sarah looked at the businessman in surprise. "Christopher, you don't even remember the last few days properly. Are you sure it's a good idea to take on this responsibility now?" "This girl saved me," he replied, looking affectionately at Lily. "It's the only thing I'm sure of in the last few days. And I can offer her something she needs, security." Lily looked between the two adults, her eyes shining with a cautious hope. "Do you really want me to live in your house?" "I do, little one, if you want to too." The next day, Christopher was discharged from the hospital. His first stop was at Mrs. Davison's boarding house to talk about Lily. The 67-year-old lady, with her grey hair always tied in a bun and gentle eyes, received him on the boarding house porch. "Mrs. Davison, I came to talk about the girl Lily." "Poor thing," sighed Mrs. Davison, rocking slowly in her rocking chair. 3 months on the street, Mr. Caldwell. 3 months I've seen that child begging for food and sleeping anywhere she can find shelter. I'd like to take her to my house, take care of her properly." Mrs. Davison studied Christopher's face for a long moment. "You have good intentions, I can see that. But you're a single man, with no experience with children. Are you sure you can give her what she needs?" "Honestly, I'm not sure of anything in the last few days, but I know I can't leave a child living on the street when I can do something to help." "And if your memory comes back and you discover you have other commitments, other responsibilities?" Mrs. Davison's question touched on something Christopher preferred not to think about. His company, his previous life, everything seemed suspended while he tried to reconstruct the lost pieces of his memory. "Mrs. Davison, can I confess something to you? 3 days ago, when I woke up in that storm drain, the first thing I felt wasn't fear or confusion. It was loneliness, a deep loneliness, as if I had forgotten not only the last few days, but also what it's like to have someone to care for." That afternoon, Christopher took Lily to his house, a large building on the outskirts of town, surrounded by a well-kept garden. For the girl, who was used to the harshness of the streets, that house looked like a palace. "This will be your home for as long as you want," Christopher said, showing her a room he had improvised for her. Lily carefully touched the soft bed, as if she feared it might disappear. "What if you get tired of me?" Christopher knelt down to her height. "Lily, you saved me when I needed it most. Now it's my turn to take care of you." But while the girl explored her new home with childlike fascination, Christopher went to his office in the back of the property. He knew that the answers about the lost last days were there, among the papers and documents of his company. What he didn't expect was that those answers would be more disturbing than any memory loss. The next morning, Christopher woke up with Lily, gently pulling on his sleeve. The girl had slept through the night without nightmares for the first time in months, but had woken up early with hunger. "Mr. Christopher, is there food in the kitchen?" He smiled, realizing he had no idea how to take care of a 4-year-old. "Let's see what we have, little one." While they prepared an improvised breakfast, Christopher watched how Lily ate slowly, savoring each piece of bread with jelly as if it were a banquet. The gratitude in her eyes touched him deeply, but also awakened an unexplainable guilt. "Lily, today I'll need to go to my office to sort some things out. Would you like to come with me?" The girl's eyes sparkled. "Can I really?" The offices of Caldwell Construction were in the business district of Harmony Creek. It was a 2-story building that Christopher had built 5 years earlier when he decided to expand the business beyond small residential projects. Lily held his hand tightly as they walked through the streets, still haunted by the possibility that this new life might disappear. "Mr. Caldwell!" exclaimed Martha, his 35-year-old secretary, rising from her desk with evident relief. "Thank God you're okay. Everyone was worried when you didn't show up on Monday." "Martha, there was an accident. I lost my memory of the last few days." He gently squeezed Lily's hand. "This is Lily. She'll be staying with me for a while." Martha looked curiously at the girl, but didn't ask questions. She had known Christopher for years and knew that he always had difficulty talking about personal matters. "Sir, there's a stack of urgent documents on your desk." And the engineer Raymond called several times asking about the landfill project. The word landfill hit Christopher like a lightning bolt. Confused fragments returned to his mind. Images of excavators, earth being moved, heated discussions, but nothing connected clearly. "Martha, can you take care of Lily for a few minutes? I need to check my files." Christopher entered his private office and went straight to the cabinet where he kept the most important documents. His hands trembled as he searched for the papers of the project Martha had mentioned. When he finally found the folder, he sat heavily in his chair. The documents showed a contract for landfilling a swampy area on the outskirts of town, near the municipal drainage system. The project had been approved 3 months ago, but there were notes in the margin in his own handwriting that made him nauseous. Unstable soil, risk of contamination, irregularities in the environmental license. Even worse, there was a letter from a state environmental agency questioning the legality of the project, dated the week before his disappearance. The letter mentioned possible sanctions and the need to immediately halt the work. "My God," Christopher murmured, running his hands over his face. "What have I done?" A gentle knock on the door interrupted him. Lily entered the office carrying a drawing she had made with papers and pencils Martha had given her. "I drew our house," she said, proudly showing the paper with childish lines, representing a large house and 2 figures holding hands. Christopher quickly put away the documents and smiled at the girl, trying to hide his anguish. "It's beautiful, Lily." "Mr. Christopher, why are you sad?" The child's perception surprised him. "I'm just worried about work, little one." At that moment, Sarah appeared at the office door. She was holding Mikey in her arms and looked like she hadn't slept again. "Christopher, can I talk to you? It's about Dave." He looked at Lily, who naturally approached Sarah to see the baby. "Of course. Lily, do you want to stay here drawing while we talk?" They went out to the conference room. Sarah sat down with Mikey, who was sleeping peacefully in her arms. "I went to the garage where Dave works," she began. "Tony told me that in the last week Dave was acting strange, asking questions about construction, about environmental permits, things that never interested him before." Christopher felt his stomach clench. "What kind of questions?" "About moving earth near the hospital. Dave mentioned that he saw trucks from your company working at odd hours during the early morning. Said it seemed like they were trying to hide something." "Sarah, Christopher stopped, realizing that anything he said could incriminate him even further. "My memory is still hazy. Christopher, I need to know the truth. Was Dave investigating your company? Is that why he disappeared?" Before he could answer, Martha rushed into the room. "Mr. Caldwell, sorry to interrupt, but there's a man here who says he's Walter Thompson. He says he used to work for you and that he needs to speak urgently." The name Walter triggered another burst of fragmented memories in Christopher's mind. He vaguely remembered an older man, tense discussions, veiled threats, but again nothing connected clearly. "You can send him in," he said, trying to maintain his composure. Walter Thompson was a 59-year-old man, thin and tired-looking. His piercing eyes immediately fixed on Christopher with a mixture of anger and satisfaction. "So, Christopher, you finally decided to show up," Walter said with a bitter smile. "I thought you had fled town after our last meeting." "Walter, I don't remember our last meeting." "Don't remember?" Walter laughed sarcastically. "Convenient. Don't remember firing me when I discovered your irregularities? Don't remember threatening me when I tried to talk about the illegal landfill?" Sarah held Mikey tighter, realizing the growing tension in the room. Christopher stood up, trying to appear more confident than he really felt. "Walter, if you have any accusations to make, I suggest you go to the proper authorities." "Authorities?" Walter approached. "The same authorities you bribed to approve that project? Or the ones who will turn a blind eye when they find out where Dave Jenkins is?" The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah paled. "You know where my husband is?" Walter looked at her with an expression that mixed pity and determination. "I know exactly where he is, and I also know why Christopher here lost his memory at the right time." Christopher felt his legs weaken. Fragments of memory began to connect in a disturbing way. A violent argument, screams, the sound of someone falling. But the more he tried to remember, the more his head hurt. "If you know where Dave is, take me to him now," demanded Sarah, getting up with Mikey. "Calm down, nurse," said Walter, never taking his eyes off Christopher. "First, our friend here needs to remember some things. Or pretend to remember." At that moment, Lily appeared in the doorway, her big eyes immediately capturing the tension in the room. She instinctively approached Christopher, holding his hand. "Mr. Christopher, why is everyone angry?" The child's presence seemed to momentarily break the tension. Walter looked at Lily with surprise, his expression softening slightly. "And who is this girl?" She's in my care," Christopher replied, feeling protective of Lily. Walter studied the scene, the rich businessman caring for a clearly abandoned child, the desperate nurse with her baby, and himself with information that could destroy lives. "Interesting," he murmured. "Looks like everyone here has a lot to lose." The tense atmosphere in the office was interrupted when Walter went directly to the window, observing the busy street below. Lily remained glued to Christopher's leg, sensing the danger that her childish perception picked up in the air. "Walter," said Christopher in a controlled voice, "if you know where Dave is, you have a moral obligation to tell us." "Moral obligation?" Walter turned around, his eyes flashing with contained anger. "You want to talk about morals after everything you've done? After contaminating the entire city's water table with your illegal landfill?" Sarah took a step forward, Mikey still in her arms. "Please, I just want my husband back. He has nothing to do with the company's problems." "Oh, but he does," replied Walter, pulling a yellowed envelope from the inside pocket of his jacket. "Dave found out everything, the falsified permits, the bribes, the soil contamination. He'd been collecting evidence for weeks." Christopher felt a growing nausea. Fragments of memory began to form in his mind. Dave appearing in his office with papers in his hand, serious accusations, his own voice shouting in denial. "He came here last Monday," continued Walter, watching Christopher's reaction closely, "with photographs, documents, samples of contaminated soil. He wanted you to confess publicly before he went to the authorities." "And what happened?" asked Sarah, her voice almost a whisper. Christopher here panicked, offered money, threatened Dave's family, tried everything to silence him. Walter paused dramatically. When Dave refused, things got violent. Lily tugged on Christopher's shirt. "Mr. Christopher, you're shaking." Indeed, Christopher's hands were visibly trembling. The memories were coming back in pieces. The argument in the office, Dave refusing to accept a bribe, his own outburst of anger. But after that, everything was blurred. I remember an argument," admitted Christopher with difficulty. "I remember being very angry, but I don't remember hurting anyone." "Convenient," murmured Walter. "Especially considering where you were found." Sarah approached Christopher, her eyes filled with tears and anger. "Did you hurt my husband? Is that why Mikey was with you?" "I don't know," exploded Christopher, scaring Lily. "I can't remember properly. It's like my mind is blocking the memories." At that moment, Martha entered the room discreetly. "Mr. Caldwell, there's a lady here who says she's Mrs. Davison. She's asking for Lily." Everyone turned to the girl, who immediately tensed up. Mrs. Davison entered the room, her gentle eyes quickly assessing the situation. "Lily, honey, are you okay?" The lady approached and immediately noticed the tension in the room. "Sorry to intrude, but I was worried." "Mrs. Davison," said Christopher, trying to regain his composure, "Lily is fine. We were just resolving work issues." Mrs. Davison studied the faces present, the clearly distressed nurse, the older man with a hostile expression, and Christopher visibly shaken. Her years of experience dealing with people told her that something very serious was happening. "Lily, how about you come with me for some ice cream while Mr. Christopher finishes working?" The girl looked between Mrs. Davison and Christopher, clearly divided between the security she had found with him and the genuine affection of the lady from the boarding house. "You can go, little one," said Christopher softly. "I'll be home soon." After Mrs. Davison left with Lily, Walter resumed his dominant position in the conversation. "Now that the child is gone, I can be more direct," he said, opening the envelope he was holding. "Dave isn't dead, Christopher." "But he almost is," Sarah gasped with a mix of relief and despair. "Where is he? How is he?" "In a safe place, being cared for. But he suffered serious head injuries when Christopher pushed him during the argument." "I pushed him?" asked Christopher, genuinely shocked. "But then how did you end up in the storm drain with the baby?" Walter completed. "That's where it gets interesting. After Dave fell and hit his head, you panicked. You grabbed Mikey, who was sleeping in the stroller, and ran off. But in your haste and panic, you ended up tripping and falling yourself into the drainage system." The version of events matched Christopher's injuries and explained why he was with Mikey. Sarah sat heavily in a chair, trying to process all the information. "So my husband is alive," she said, tears streaming down her face. "But injured because of this man." "Seriously injured," confirmed Walter. "He was unconscious for 2 days. When he woke up, he couldn't speak properly due to the trauma to his head." Christopher approached Sarah. "I'm going to pay for all his treatment. I'm going to do everything in my power to buy our silence?" interrupted Walter, "like you tried to do before." "No," said Christopher firmly, "to try to repair the damage I caused. If I really hurt Dave, I need to take responsibility." Sarah looked at him with a mixture of anger and surprise. "Are you saying you're going to turn yourself in?" "I'm saying I want to see Dave first. I want to apologize personally and ensure he receives the best possible treatment." Walter studied Christopher for a long moment. And then, "Are you going to publicly confess the environmental crimes of your company?" "If it's necessary for Dave to receive justice, yes." The answer surprised even Walter, who expected more denial and attempts at bribery. "There's one condition," said Walter after a pause. "You'll come with me to where Dave is, but you'll be unarmed and no tricks. And if you try anything to silence him definitively—" "I won't try anything," interrupted Christopher. "I just want to see him and apologize." While they worked out the details of the meeting, none of them realized that Lily had returned to the building alone. The girl had managed to get away from Mrs. Davison, claiming she had forgotten something in the office. In fact, she was worried about Christopher and wanted to make sure he was okay. Hidden behind the half-open door, Lily overheard parts of the adults' conversation. She didn't fully understand what words like crime or confess meant, but she understood perfectly that the man who had given her a home was in serious trouble. When she heard Walter mention that they would take Christopher somewhere, Lily felt the same fear she had experienced when her parents said they would be right back. It was the fear of abandonment, of loss, of being alone again. Without making a sound, she moved away from the door and ran down the stairs, looking for Mrs. Davison. She needed to tell someone that Mr. Christopher was in danger, even if she didn't know exactly what kind of danger it was. Lily ran through the streets of Harmony Creek until she found Mrs. Davison sitting on the bench in the town square, watching the children playing in the makeshift playground that the city hall had set up in the center of town. "Mrs. Davison! Mrs. Davison!" shouted the girl, breathless. "Honey, what happened? Why did you run back?" Lily threw herself into the lady's arms, her words tumbling out. "Mr. Christopher is in danger. There's an angry man there who wants to take him away." And Miss Sarah was crying a lot. Mrs. Davison held Lily's small face in her hands. "Calm down, dear. Take a deep breath and tell me properly what you heard." They were talking about Miss Sarah's husband. The angry man said that Mr. Christopher hurt him, and now they want to take Mr. Christopher somewhere. Mrs. Davison's eyes filled with concern. She had known Christopher for years, since he had arrived in Harmony Creek to open the construction company. She had always considered him an honest man, even if reserved. Lily, does Mr. Christopher know you left? No, he told me to come with you. But I came back secretly because I was worried about him. Mrs. Davison made a decision. Let's go back there. If Mr. Christopher is in trouble, someone needs to keep an eye on things. When they arrived at the construction company building, they saw Christopher leaving accompanied by Walter and Sarah, who was carrying Mikey in her arms. The businessman looked dejected but determined. "Mr. Christopher," called Lily, running towards him. He turned around, surprised to see her there. "Lily, I thought you had gone with Mrs. Davison." "I came back because I was worried about you." The girl looked suspiciously at Walter. "Where are you going?" Christopher knelt down to her height. "I need to resolve some important things, little one. Mrs. Davison will take care of you until I get back. But are you really coming back? Promise?" The innocent question hit Christopher hard. He didn't know if he would come back, not even if he should come back considering what he had done. But looking into those trusting eyes, he couldn't lie completely. "I'll do everything I can to come back, Lily. You're very important to me." Mrs. Davison approached. "Mr. Christopher, if you allow me, I'd like to accompany you. Someone neutral should witness whatever you're going to do." Walter was going to protest, but Christopher interrupted him. "Mrs. Davison is right. It will be better to have an impartial witness." The group headed to the outskirts of Harmony Creek, where the old abandoned factories were located. Walter guided them to a brick building, half hidden among the vegetation that grew uncontrollably in the region. "He's in here," said Walter, stopping in front of a peeling wooden door. "But before we go in, I want to make one thing clear, Christopher. Dave woke up 2 days ago. He remembers everything." Sarah squeezed Mikey against her chest. "How is he? Can he talk?" "He can, but with difficulty. The trauma affected his motor coordination." Walter looked directly at Christopher. "He specifically asked to see you, said he needs to hear your version of events before deciding what to do." They entered the abandoned factory. The interior was dimly lit by a few lamps connected to a noisy generator. In the back, on an improvised mattress, was Dave Jenkins. The 45-year-old mechanic was visibly weakened. His head was bandaged, and he had difficulty keeping his eyes focused. When he saw Sarah approach with Mikey, he tried to smile. "Sarah, honey," he said in a slurred voice. "Mikey, is he okay?" "He's fine, honey. Thank God he's fine." Sarah knelt beside her husband, tears streaming freely down her face. Dave then looked at Christopher, who remained standing a few feet away. "Christopher, you came." "Dave, Christopher approached slowly. "I don't even know where to begin to apologize." "Sit here," asked Dave, indicating an old chair next to the mattress. "I need to understand." Christopher sat down, his hands trembling slightly. "Dave, my memory of the last few days is still confused, but Walter told me what happened. If I really pushed you and caused these injuries—" "Do you remember the argument?" asked Dave with effort. "Fragments. I remember you brought documents, talked about irregularities in the company. I remember being very angry, shouting." Christopher paused, closing his eyes to try to access the memories. "I remember you saying you were going to expose everything publicly." "And you offered money," continued Dave. "A lot of money, for me to forget. And when you refused, I lost control." The admission came from Christopher like a painful confession. "Dave, I'm not a violent person, never hurt anyone physically before, but at that moment—" "You were desperate," said Dave, his voice becoming clearer as he concentrated, "afraid of losing everything." Walter, who had been watching the conversation in silence, spoke up. "Dave, you don't need to feel sorry for him. He almost killed you defending his own crimes." "Walter, sit, please," asked Dave. Let me talk to him." Sarah held her husband's free hand, still processing being finally reunited with him. "Dave, do you remember how you ended up here? How Walter found you?" "After Christopher pushed me, I hit my head on the table. Dave explained slowly. I woke up on the floor. Christopher had run off with Mikey. I tried to follow him, but I was dizzy. And that's when I arrived, completed Walter. I'd come to the office because I knew Dave was investigating the company. I found him on the floor, bleeding. Why didn't you take me to the hospital? Asked Sarah. Walter hesitated before answering. Because Dave asked me not to. He said he wanted time to think, to decide what to do with Christopher. Dave confirmed with a nod. I was very angry. I wanted him to suffer, like my family was suffering. So you knew I was desperately looking for you? Asked Sarah, her voice filled with hurt. Sorry, Sarah. I didn't think straight. The blow made me confused about a lot of things. Christopher stood up abruptly. Dave, I'm going to turn myself in. I'm going to confess what I did and take the consequences, both for the assault and for the environmental problems of the company. Wait, said Dave, struggling to sit up straighter. Before you do anything, I need to tell you something important. Everyone in the room fell silent, waiting. Christopher, you weren't the only one responsible for the irregularities. The revelation landed like a bomb in the room. Walter approached quickly. What do you mean by that, Dave? During my investigation, I discovered that there were other people involved. People who pressured Christopher to approve the project, even knowing the risks. Christopher looked at Dave with growing surprise. What people? Local politicians, out-of-state businessmen, people with a lot of power to destroy anyone who opposed them. Walter paled. You're saying Christopher was coerced? Partly, yes, confirmed Dave. That doesn't excuse the assault, but it explains why he was so desperate. While the adults processed this new information, Lily, who had remained quiet beside Mrs. Davison, approached Dave. Uncle Dave, Mr. Christopher saved me from the streets. He's a good person. Dave looked at the girl with tenderness. I know, little one. That's why I want to find a solution that's fair for everyone. 2 weeks had passed since the meeting at the abandoned factory. Dave had been transferred to the town's hospital, where he was receiving adequate treatment fully paid for by Christopher. The mechanic's recovery was slow but steady, and his speech was almost normal. Christopher had insisted on taking care of Lily throughout this period, despite the tension surrounding his legal situation. The girl had completely adapted to the routine in his house, and the bond between the two grew stronger every day. Mr. Christopher, why does Mrs. Davison come to visit us every day? Asked Lily one morning while they were having breakfast together. Christopher had noticed that Mrs. Davison appeared daily at his house, always with some excuse. She brought homemade cookies, offered help with Lily, or simply came to check up to see if everything was okay. I think she worries about us, he replied, pouring more milk for the girl. But she keeps looking at me in a strange way, like she wants to tell me something but can't. Lily's keen perception constantly impressed Christopher. The girl had an unusual ability to read the emotions of the adults around her. At that moment, the doorbell rang. It was Mrs. Davison, as usual, but this time she seemed more tense than normal. Good morning, Mr. Caldwell. Can I come in? I need to talk about something important. They sat down in the living room while Lily played with dolls that Christopher had bought for her. Mrs. Davison was silent for a few moments, clearly struggling with something internal. Mr. Caldwell, there's something about Lily I need to tell you. Something I discovered recently and didn't know how to approach. What is it, Mrs. Davison? The lady took a deep breath. I lied when I said I only knew Lily since she appeared in town. Actually, she's my granddaughter. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of Lily's dolls banging against each other as she played, oblivious to the conversation. Your granddaughter? Repeated Christopher, incredulous. My daughter Carol got pregnant at 17 and left home. She cut off contact with me completely. I knew she had married and that her husband was no good, but I could never find her." Mrs. Davison wiped a tear that was rolling down her face. "When Lily appeared in town 3 months ago, something bothered me about her features. It was too familiar. How did you find out the truth?" "Last week, when Lily was playing at the boarding house, she mentioned that she remembered a grandma who sang to her when she was very little. She described a specific song that only I sang to Carol." Mrs. Davison paused, emotional. "So I went after the papers that Carol left when she left home. I found Lily's birth certificate. She really is my granddaughter." Christopher looked at Lily, who was still playing, and felt his heart clench. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I was afraid. Afraid that you wouldn't let her come visit me anymore. Afraid that she would be taken from me again." Mrs. Davison held Christopher's hands, "but mostly afraid that she wouldn't want to stay with me after having found stability with you. Mrs. Davison, Lily has the right to know the truth, and she has the right to choose where she wants to live." At that moment, Sarah arrived for a scheduled visit. She came every day to get information about Dave's condition and had also developed affection for Lily. "Hi, Lily. How's our princess today?" said Sarah, entering the room with Mikey in her arms. "Aunt Sarah, do you want to play dolls with me?" "Of course I do. But first I need to talk to Uncle Christopher and Grandma Davison." Sarah immediately noticed the tension in the room. "Did something happen?" Mrs. Davison again told her revelation to Sarah, who listened in growing silence. "Oh my God," said Sarah when Mrs. Davison finished. "This changes everything, doesn't it?" "Changes what?" asked Lily, who had approached without them noticing. The 3 adults looked at each other, clearly not knowing how to explain the situation to a 4-year-old child. "Lily," began Mrs. Davison in a trembling voice, "do you remember the grandma who sang to you when you were little?" "I remember a little bit. She was very pretty and smelled like cake." "Well, my dear," Mrs. Davison hesitated, then decided to be direct. "That grandma was me. I'm your real grandma." Lily was silent for a long moment, her big eyes alternating between Mrs. Davison and Christopher. "Does that mean you're my blood family?" "That's right, honey." "And Mr. Christopher? Is he still going to be my daddy?" The innocent question created a moment of deep tension. Christopher knelt down beside Lily. "Lily, this doesn't change how much I care about you. But now that we know Mrs. Davison is your real grandma, maybe it's better for you to live with her." "But I don't want to choose," said Lily, starting to cry. "I want to stay with both of you." Sarah approached, placing Mikey on the sofa and hugging Lily. "You don't have to choose now, little one. The adults will talk and find the best solution." That afternoon, after Sarah and Mrs. Davison left, Christopher was alone with Lily. The girl was quieter than usual, clearly processing the day's information. "Mr. Christopher, can I ask you something?" "Of course, little one. If Grandma Davison is my real family, why did my parents abandon me? Why didn't she stay with me before?" The question hurt Christopher because he had no answer. "Sometimes adults make mistakes, Lily. Your parents made a mistake in abandoning you, and Mrs. Davison made a mistake in not looking for you before. But the important thing is that now you have people who care about you. And if I stay with Grandma Davison, will you forget about me?" "Never. You changed my life, Lily. Even if you live with your grandma, I'll always be your friend." That night, after Lily fell asleep, Christopher received an unexpected call. It was Walter. "Christopher, I need to talk to you urgently. It's about the people who were pressuring you on the landfill project. What did you find out?" "Dave gave me some names before he went to the hospital. I did some investigations and, well, the situation is more serious than we imagined." "How so?" "One of those involved is the mayor himself, and there are documents that prove he was receiving a percentage of the project's profits." Christopher felt his stomach churn. If the mayor was involved, the situation became politically much more complex. "Walter, where did you get this information?" "Dave had hidden some documents before confronting you. He gave them to me today at the hospital. And what do you intend to do with it? That depends on you, Christopher. We can expose everything and take several culprits along, or you can continue being the only scapegoat. That night, Christopher couldn't sleep. He had two complex situations to resolve: Lily's future, now that Mrs. Davison had revealed herself as her grandmother, and the decision on whether to expose the corruption scheme that involved him. In the morning, Lily found him in the kitchen already awake, drinking coffee and looking out the window. "Mr. Christopher, didn't you sleep?" "I slept little one. I was thinking about a lot of things. About me. About you, too. Lily, what if I told you that maybe we have to separate for a while?" The girl's eyes immediately filled with tears. "Why? Did I do something wrong?" No, you never did anything wrong." Christopher picked her up. "It's just that sometimes adults need to solve complicated problems, and during that time, it may be better for you to stay with safer people." "Safer than you?" The question hit Christopher hard. How to explain to a 4-year-old that he could be arrested, that his life was about to turn upside down? "Lily, if I had to leave for a while, would you be okay with Mrs. Davison? Only if you promised to come back. And if Grandma Davison promised that I can still be your daughter in my heart too." At that moment, Christopher made a decision that would change the course of everything. He wasn't just going to passively surrender. He was going to fight for his freedom and for the right to continue taking care of Lily. A week after Mrs. Davison's revelation about being Lily's grandmother, Christopher decided that he needed to investigate the story more deeply. Something didn't fit perfectly, and his experience as a businessman had taught him to distrust very convenient coincidences. That morning, while Lily was playing in the backyard, Christopher called Martha, asking her to do some discreet research on Mrs. Davison's family. "Martha, I need you to check birth and marriage certificates of the Davison family in the region's registry offices, especially a Carol Davison, who would be Mrs. Davison's daughter." "Any specific problem, Mr. Caldwell?" "Just checking some information. Call me as soon as you have something." 2 hours later, Martha returned the call with information that left Christopher disturbed. "Mr. Caldwell, I found records of a Carol Davison who is Mrs. Davison's daughter, but there are some inconsistencies." "What kind of inconsistencies?" "Carol really left home at 17, but not because of pregnancy. The records show that she moved to San Francisco to work as a saleswoman. I also found her marriage certificate from 2 years ago, but there is no record of children." Christopher felt a chill in his stomach. "Are you sure of this information?" "Absolutely. And there's one more strange thing. Carol Davison died in a car accident 6 months ago in San Francisco, well before Lily appeared here." The phone almost slipped from Christopher's hands. If Carol had died 6 months ago and never had children, then Mrs. Davison had lied about being Lily's grandmother. But why? "Martha, don't comment on this with anyone yet. I need to check other things first." That afternoon, Christopher decided to confront Mrs. Davison, but in a subtle way. He invited her to dinner at his house, claiming that he wanted to discuss Lily's future. "Mrs. Davison, I've been thinking about our conversation. I'd like to know more about your daughter Carol. Maybe it's important for Lily to know the family history." Mrs. Davison became visibly uncomfortable. "Oh, Mr. Caldwell, it's a very painful story. I prefer not to talk much about it." "I understand, but Lily may ask questions in the future. Where is Carol now? Would she like to meet her daughter?" "Carol is very far away. We lost contact completely." Mrs. Davison avoided looking Christopher in the eye. "It's better for Lily not to know much about her for now." Christopher realized that Mrs. Davison was lying, but decided not to pressure her yet. He needed to understand her motivations before taking any action. After dinner, while Lily watched television, Mrs. Davison approached Christopher in the kitchen. "Mr. Caldwell, can I make a confession?" "Of course, Mrs. Davison. When I said I had seen you and Dave arguing violently before his disappearance, I lied. Christopher almost dropped the plate he was washing. You lied. Yes, I never saw any argument. I invented that story because I was desperate to protect Lily. Protect her from what? Mrs. Davison sat heavily in a chair. I was afraid that you were one of those rich people who adopt children on impulse and then get tired of them. I thought that if I created some suspicion about your character, the authorities wouldn't allow you to stay with her. Mrs. Davison, do you realize the seriousness of what you did? Your lie could have falsely incriminated me. I know. Mrs. Davison began to cry. I regretted it on the same day, but I was already too involved in the story. And then, when I saw how you really took good care of her, Christopher sat down next to her. Mrs. Davison, is there anything else you'd like to confess to me? The direct question caught Mrs. Davison off guard. She looked at Christopher with evident fear in her eyes. What are you talking about? About Lily being your granddaughter, about Carol. Mrs. Davison paled completely. I don't understand. I've done some checking, Mrs. Davison. Carol never had children, and she died 6 months ago. The silence that followed was deafening. Mrs. Davison covered her face with her hands and began to sob uncontrollably. How did you find out? That doesn't matter now. What matters is knowing why you lied again. Mrs. Davison raised her tear-stained face. Because I fell in love with that girl. In 3 months, taking care of her occasionally, she became the most important thing in my life. And you invented the granddaughter story to have legal rights over her? It wasn't like that. Mrs. Davison stood up, agitated. In the beginning, I just wanted to protect her from the streets, but when you appeared and she became so attached to you, I was afraid of losing her completely. So you created a story about being related to her. I know it was wrong, but Mr. Caldwell, you have your company, your problems, your complicated life. I have only that boarding house and a lot of love to give. Lily would be my only family. At that moment, a small voice came from the kitchen door. Grandma Davison, why are you crying? Lily had approached without them noticing, attracted by the sounds of the argument. Her big eyes alternated between Mrs. Davison and Christopher, clearly worried. It's nothing, honey, said Mrs. Davison quickly, trying to dry her tears. Adults sometimes get sad over silly things. But you were talking about me. I heard my name. Christopher knelt down to Lily's height. Little one, Mrs. Davison was telling me that she sometimes makes up stories because she likes you very much. What kind of stories? Mrs. Davison looked pleadingly at Christopher, clearly asking him not to reveal the truth to the girl at that moment. Stories about how you met, said Christopher diplomatically. Nothing important. Lily studied the two adults with her keen perception. Are you lying to me? The direct question left both without an answer for a moment. Lily, said Mrs. Davison finally, sometimes adults don't tell everything at once because they don't want to hurt children. But lying is wrong. You always tell me that. Christopher sighed. You're right, little one. Lying is wrong. And maybe it's time for all of us to be more honest with each other. That night, after Lily fell asleep, Christopher and Mrs. Davison continued talking in the living room. Mrs. Davison, I understand your feelings for Lily. I've also become deeply attached to her, but we can't build a family based on lies. What are you going to do now? Are you going to report me? I'm not going to report you. But we need to find an honest solution for Lily's future. And if she finds out that I'm not really her grandmother, will she hate me? I don't know, Mrs. Davison, but I know she deserves to know the truth. Mrs. Davison was silent for a long moment. Mr. Caldwell, can I ask you a favor? What favor? Give me a few days to tell her the truth myself. In my own way, in my own time. Christopher considered the request. A week, Mrs. Davison. In a week, if you don't tell her, I will? Thank you. And Mr. Caldwell? Yes? Even if I'm not her grandmother by blood, the love I feel for Lily is real. You can believe that. I believe you, Mrs. Davison. And that's exactly why this situation is so complicated. The next morning, Christopher woke up with a feeling that he was losing control of his life. Walter kept pressing to expose the corruption scheme. Mrs. Davison had lied about being Lily's grandmother, and he himself still faced possible charges for assaulting Dave. While having coffee alone, Lily was still asleep. Christopher wondered if it wouldn't be better for everyone if he simply disappeared from the girl's life. Maybe she would be happier without all the complication that his presence brought. But when Lily appeared in the kitchen, still in her pajamas and with her hair messy, saying good morning to him with her innocent smile, Christopher knew that he couldn't abandon her. No matter how many problems arose, he would fight to continue being part of her life. 3 days after discovering Mrs. Davison's lie, Christopher received a call that would drastically change his situation. It was his accountant, Sebastian Miller, with devastating news. "Christopher, we need to talk urgently. It's about the company." "What happened, Sebastian?" "The rumors about your disappearance and the problems with the landfill project have reached the banks. They are demanding the early repayment of all loans." Christopher felt the world spin around him. "How much time do we have?" 2 weeks. If we can't pay off the debts or renegotiate, they'll execute the guarantees. That includes your house." The house where Lily had finally found safety. The house that represented stability for a child who had already been abandoned so many times. "Sebastian, how much do we need exactly?" $200,000. "It's a large amount, Christopher. And with the company paralyzed because of the environmental investigations, our ability to generate revenue is compromised." After hanging up the phone, Christopher sat on the porch, watching Lily play in the backyard. The girl had created a small dollhouse with cardboard boxes and was playing Happy Family, making different voices for each character. "Mr. Christopher, do you want to play with me?" she called, waving happily. "Of course, little one." Christopher joined her on the ground, trying to hide his worry. While they were playing, Lily began to talk about her plans for the future. "When I grow up, I'm going to live in this house forever. And I'm going to take care of you when you get old." Each word was like a dagger to Christopher's heart. How to explain to a 4-year-old that they might lose the house, that maybe he wouldn't be able to take care of her anymore. That afternoon, Sarah came to visit with Mikey. The nurse had become a constant presence in their lives, especially after Dave was discharged from the hospital the week before. "Christopher, you look down. Did something happen?" He told her about the financial situation while Lily was distracted playing with Mikey, who was now smiling and reacting to stimuli. "Oh my God, that's terrible. Is there anything we can do to help?" "I don't know, Sarah. I'm thinking about selling some personal assets, but I don't know if it will be enough." "And Lily, does she know?" "No. How can I tell a child that we might lose our house? She's already been abandoned by her parents. I can't make her go through that again." Sarah watched Lily playing with Mikey, the girl humming softly a song she had learned on television. "Christopher, can I suggest something? What if you talk to Walter? Maybe there's a way to use that information about the corruption scheme to your advantage." "How so?" "If you have evidence that you were coerced by politicians and other powerful people, maybe you can negotiate your way out of this situation." "Blackmail?" "Not exactly. More like justice. If those people forced you to approve illegal projects, they are also responsible for the consequences." That night, after Lily fell asleep, Christopher called Walter. "Walter, I need to talk to you about that evidence that Dave collected. Have you finally decided to act? My company is about to go bankrupt because of the rumors. I need to find a way to get rid of this situation. And you think exposing the others involved will clear your name?" "I don't know. But I know that if I lose everything, Lily will suffer the consequences." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "The girl you're taking care of." "That's right. She's already been abandoned once. I can't let that happen again because of me." Christopher, if we decide to expose this scheme, you understand that it may get even more complicated for you. Those people have the power to defend themselves. I understand. But I can't stand idly by while my life crumbles. Then let's meet tomorrow. I have a proposal that may interest you. The next morning, Christopher left Lily with Mrs. Davison, who still hadn't told her the truth about not being her grandmother, and met with Walter at a discreet cafe in the center of town. Walter, what's your proposal? Simple. Let's go to the authorities and tell them everything. You confess your part in the environmental crimes, but present the evidence of political coercion. In exchange, you negotiate a lighter punishment and the possibility of keeping your personal assets. And what do you gain from this? Justice. Those people who pressured you destroyed our town's environment, thinking only about their own profit. They need to pay. Christopher considered the proposal. And if it doesn't work, what if I end up losing everything anyway? At least you will have fought, and Lily will grow up knowing that you tried to do the right thing. That afternoon, when Christopher returned home, he found a scene that made him even more worried. Lily was crying in Mrs. Davison's arms, who was trying to console her. What happened? Some children from the neighborhood said bad things to her, explained Mrs. Davison, stroking Lily's hair. They said you're a criminal and that she'll have to go back to the streets. Christopher felt a blind fury. What children? Mr. Christopher, said Lily between sobs, is it true that you did bad things? Is it true that they're going to take us out of this house? The direct question from the girl left him speechless, how to answer honestly without destroying the trust she placed in him. Lily, it's true that I made some mistakes, but I'm trying to fix them. And our house. Are we going to lose our house? Christopher knelt down to her height. Little one, it may be that we have to move, but that doesn't mean I'm going to abandon you. But where are we going to live? I don't know yet, but we'll find a solution together. That night, after Lily finally fell asleep after much crying, Christopher made a definitive decision. He called Walter. I accept your proposal. Let's expose everything. Are you sure? Absolutely. I can't let Lily grow up thinking I gave up without fighting. Then let's meet tomorrow morning at the district attorney's office. Bring all the documents you have about the project. While organizing the papers in his office, Christopher found a letter that Dave had left for him at the hospital. Inside was an unexpected confession. Christopher, I know you made mistakes, but I also know that you were pressured by people much more powerful than you. Therefore, I've decided not to press charges against you for the assault. My only condition is that you fight to expose the real culprits behind the environmental destruction of our town. Lily deserves to grow up in a world where justice prevails. Dave's letter was the final incentive that Christopher needed. The next day, he would appear at the district attorney's office and tell the whole truth, no matter the personal consequences. But before, he needed to have an honest conversation with Lily about what might happen in the coming days. The girl deserved to know that her life was about to change again, and that this time he didn't know if he could protect her from all the consequences. On the morning that Christopher was preparing to go to the district attorney's office, Sarah arrived at his house in a state of panic. She held Mikey tightly, but there was something different in her expression, a mixture of despair and guilt that Christopher immediately recognized. Christopher, I need to tell you something before you make any decision about confessing. Lily was in the backyard playing with her dolls, oblivious to the tension that had settled in the house. Christopher led Sarah to the living room, realizing that she was trembling slightly. Sarah, what happened? Is Dave okay? Dave is okay. It's about Mikey. She looked at the baby in her arms, who was sleeping peacefully. There's something I've never told anyone, not even Dave. Christopher felt a pang in his stomach. What about Mikey? He's not Dave's son. The words came out of Sarah like a painful confession. I had a relationship before I got married. When I found out I was pregnant, I had only been with Dave for 2 months. The silence that followed was charged with implications that Christopher was still processing. Does Dave know? No. I let him believe that Gabriel was premature. He didn't even suspect because he was so happy with the news of the pregnancy. Sarah began to cry. Christopher, I've lived these whole months lying to the man I love. But why are you telling me this now? Because Mikey's biological father is one of the people involved in the scheme that pressured you. Christopher stood up abruptly. How so? Dr. Henry Matthews, the town's Secretary of Public Works. We had a 3-month affair last year. He was married, promised he was going to separate. The usual lies. Sarah dried her tears. When I found out I was pregnant, he disappeared from my life. Denied everything. Sarah, do you realize what this means? It means I have information that can help you. Henry told me things about the scheme when we were still together. Names, amounts, ways to pressure businessmen like you. Christopher walked around the room, trying to process all the implications of the revelation. Does he know that Mikey is his son? He suspects. Last week he contacted me at the hospital. Said he had seen Mikey and wanted to do a DNA test. And what did you answer? That Mikey was Dave's son and that he had no right to anything. Sarah squeezed the baby against her chest, but he threatened to expose me publicly if I didn't cooperate with him. Cooperate how? He wants me to convince Dave to stop investigating his company. Said that if Dave continues asking questions, he'll tell everyone about Mikey. At that moment, Lily ran into the room. Mr. Christopher, can I play with Mikey? Christopher and Sarah looked at each other, clearly needing to continue the conversation in private. Of course, little one, but let's go to the backyard, okay? Aunt Sarah and I need to talk about grown-up things. After they settled in the backyard, where Lily was playing with Mikey under the shade of the apple tree, the conversation continued in a lower tone. Sarah, do you understand that this information you have about Henry can change everything? I understand, but I also understand that if I talk, I'm going to destroy my marriage. Dave will find out that Mikey isn't his son and that I lied for months. And if you don't talk, I can be unjustly convicted of crimes I committed under duress. I know. That's why I'm here, Christopher. I don't know what to do. They stood watching Lily, who had put Mikey sitting on the grass and was showing him her dolls, explaining each character as if the baby could understand. Look how well she takes care of him, commented Sarah. Lily would be a perfect older sister. Sarah, can I ask you a personal question? Sure. Do you love Dave? More than anything, he's the best man I've ever met. That's why I can't destroy our family. What if there's a way to expose Henry without necessarily revealing Mikey's paternity? Sarah looked at Christopher with interest. How? You said he told you things about the corruption scheme. If we have independent evidence about his crimes, maybe it won't be necessary to mention your personal relationship. But he'll know that it was me who told. And then he'll use Mikey against me. At that moment, a familiar voice interrupted the conversation. It was Dave, who had arrived without them noticing. Use Mikey against you how? He asked, approaching the group. Sarah paled. Dave had heard the final part of the conversation, and his expression showed growing confusion. Sarah, who were you talking about? Who would use our son against you? Christopher realized that Sarah was in a panic. Dave, sit here. Your wife has important information about the case. Dave sat on the grass next to Mikey, who immediately reached out his little arms to him. It was a touching scene. A loving father with a son who didn't know he wasn't biologically his. Dave, Sarah began, her voice trembling, remember when you were investigating the irregularities at Christopher Caldwell's construction company? Of course. And I found out that there were several people involved besides him. One of those people is Dr. Henry Matthews, the Secretary of Public Works. How do you know? Sarah took a deep breath. Because he came to see me at the hospital last week. He said he knew you were investigating and asked me to convince you to stop. And you didn't tell me? Dave asked, visibly disturbed. I was scared. He made some threats. What kind of threats? Christopher realized that Sarah was getting dangerously close to the truth about Mikey. Dave, maybe we should focus on the information Sarah has about the corruption scheme. No, Dave said firmly. I want to know what threats he made to my wife. Sarah looked desperately at Christopher, pleading for help. It was obvious that she couldn't keep the secret much longer. Aunt Sarah, why are you crying? Asked Lily, who had approached, concerned. It's nothing, honey. Adults sometimes get sad over silly things. Is it like when I get sad because I'm afraid of being abandoned again? Lily's innocent question hit all the adults present hard. The little girl had touched the heart of the matter, the fear of abandonment, of rejection, of losing the people we love. Lily's right, Sarah said suddenly. Sometimes we're afraid of being abandoned by the people we love because of mistakes we've made. Dave took his wife's hand. Sarah, no matter what mistake you've made, nothing will change how I feel about you. Are you sure? She asked, tears streaming down her face. Absolutely. Christopher realized that this was the moment of truth. Sarah was about to confess about Mikey, and he didn't know if he should interfere or let her make her own decision. Dave, Sarah said finally, there's something about Mikey that you need to know. At that moment, as if sensing the tension in the air, Mikey started to cry. Dave immediately picked him up, soothing him with affectionate fatherly gestures. Whatever it is, Sarah, we can solve it together, he said, looking alternately at his wife and the son he was cradling in his arms. The scene was both beautiful and heartbreaking. A man who unconditionally loved his family, about to discover that everything he believed about his son was a lie. Sarah's confession about Mikey not being Dave's biological son was interrupted by the unexpected arrival of Dr. Henry Matthews. The Secretary of Public Works appeared at the gate of Christopher's house with an authoritative expression that contrasted with his frail physical appearance. Sarah, we need to talk. Now, he said, completely ignoring the presence of the others. Dave immediately stood up, still holding Mikey. Who are you? And what do you want with my wife? I'm Dr. Henry Matthews, Secretary of Public Works for the city, and I've come to get answers about some unfounded accusations that are being made against me. Christopher positioned himself between Henry and his makeshift family. Dr. Matthews, this is private property. If you have official matters to discuss, I suggest you use the appropriate channels. Christopher Caldwell, Henry said with a cruel smile. Exactly the person I wanted to see too. I heard you're planning to make some foolish statements to the authorities. They're not foolish if they're true. Henry laughed sarcastically. True? You're going to accuse respectable people of corruption based on what evidence? The hallucinations of a traumatized mechanic. Dave stepped forward, clearly angry. Watch what you say about me. Ah, the famous amateur investigator, Henry said, looking Dave up and down. You know, Dave, there are things about your family that maybe you should know before you go around accusing innocent people. Sarah paled. Henry, don't what, dear Sarah? Shouldn't I tell the husband of the hospital's most dedicated nurse about our romantic encounters last year? The silence that followed was deafening. Dave looked between Henry and Sarah, clearly trying to process the information. What romantic encounters? He asked, his voice low but full of tension. Dave, I can explain, Sarah said desperately. Explain then, he replied, his expression hardening. Lily, sensing the growing tension between the adults, approached Christopher. Mr. Christopher, why is everyone angry again? Go play inside, little one, Christopher said gently. The adults need to sort some things out. But I want to stay with you. Lily, obey, Christopher said more firmly. The girl, recognizing the serious tone, reluctantly went inside the house. Henry watched the interaction with interest. Touching. The great businessman playing daddy with a street orphan. Leave Lily out of this, Christopher said threateningly. Why should I? Especially when you insist on involving me in false accusations. Henry turned to Dave again. Want to know the truth about Mikey, Dave? Henry, stop! Sarah screamed. Mikey isn't his son. He's mine. The words fell like a bomb. Dave staggered, almost dropping the baby he was holding. Christopher quickly took Mikey from his arms. That's not true, Dave murmured, looking at Sarah. Tell me it's not true. Sarah was crying uncontrollably. Dave, I wanted to tell you, but it's true then? Dave's voice was broken. Yes, she whispered. It's true. Dave walked away from everyone, his expression showing the deep pain of a double betrayal, not just infidelity, but months of lies about the paternity of the son he had learned to love. Perfect, Henry said with satisfaction. Now that we've cleared that up, we can talk business. Dave, you're going to stop investigating my projects. Sarah, you're going to guarantee me regular access to my son. And Christopher, you're going to withdraw any accusations against me. And if we refuse, Christopher asked, then I'll make your lives a living hell. I have enough political connections to destroy any of you. At that moment, a faint voice came from the direction of the house. It was Lily, who had disobeyed and stayed listening behind the door. Uncle Dave, don't be sad. Mikey still loves you, even if he's not your blood son. The girl's innocent observation hit Dave unexpectedly. He looked at Mikey, who was sleeping peacefully in Christopher's arms, oblivious to all the drama around him. Lily's right, Dave said slowly. I've raised Mikey since he was born. I'm the only father he knows. But that doesn't matter legally, Henry said. I can claim my parental rights at any time. Your rights? Sarah exploded. You abandoned me when you found out I was pregnant. You denied your son. Now you want to come here and make threats? Circumstances have changed, darling. Now I need guarantees that you'll cooperate with me. Christopher watched the scene with growing indignation. Henry was using an innocent child as an instrument of blackmail, just as he had used political pressure to force him to approve illegal projects. Dr. Matthews, Christopher said firmly, you've made a grave mistake. What mistake? You made your threats in front of witnesses. Christopher took his cell phone out of his pocket. And I recorded everything. Henry's face paled. You can't use that. It's recording without consent. I can if it's to prove extortion and blackmail. Christopher, you don't understand who you're messing with. I understand perfectly. With a cowardly man who uses children to get what he wants. At that moment, Walter Thompson appeared at the gate. He had arrived to pick up Christopher for the meeting at the district attorney's office and found the argument in progress. What's going on here? He asked. Walter, I'm glad you arrived, Christopher said. Dr. Matthews here was explaining to us how the city's corruption scheme works. Henry realized he was outnumbered. You'll regret this, he said, retreating toward the gate. I have powerful friends, and we have evidence, Walter replied, including the recordings that Dave made before he was attacked. What recordings? It was Dave's turn to speak, his voice still heavy with emotion but gaining strength. I recorded our conversation in your office, Dr. Matthews, when you admitted to pressuring Christopher and other businessmen. That's impossible. I searched you, but you didn't find the recorder that I hid in your office's bathroom. Dave smiled bitterly. 3 hours of detailed confessions about bribes, threats, and forgery of documents. Henry was visibly panicked now. Those recordings are worthless. They were obtained illegally. Actually, Walter said, they're perfectly legal. Dave was in your office at your invitation, discussing matters of public interest. You don't know what you're playing with, Henry said, his voice now full of despair. If you expose me, I'll take everyone down with me, including yourself, Christopher replied. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Henry looked one last time at Mikey, who had woken up and was watching everything with his big, curious eyes. This isn't the end, he said before quickly walking away. After Henry left, the group was silent for a few moments. Dave slowly approached Mikey, who was in Christopher's arms. Can I? He asked. Christopher handed the baby over carefully. Mikey immediately smiled when he saw Dave, reaching out his little hands to him. "He recognizes me," Dave said, his voice choking. "To him, I'm his father." "And you are," Sarah said, approaching hesitantly. "Being a father isn't about DNA, Dave. It's about love, care, presence." Dave looked at his wife, still processing the betrayal, but also recognizing the truth in her words. "We need to talk, Sarah. A lot. I know, and I'm ready to tell you everything. The whole truth." Lily, who had observed the whole scene, approached the group. "So Uncle Dave is still going to be Mikey's dad?" "Yes, little one," Dave replied, managing to smile for the first time since the revelation. "Some things don't change, no matter what we discover." Dave's response gave Christopher a new perspective on his own situation with Lily. Maybe the love they felt for each other was more important than any legal or social complication. 3 days after the confrontation with Henry, the week that Christopher had given Mrs. Davison to tell Lily the truth about not being her grandmother, was coming to an end. The tension in the house was palpable, especially because the girl realized that something important was being hidden from her. "Mr. Christopher, why is Grandma Davison acting weird with me?" Lily asked as they had breakfast. "She keeps looking at me like she's sad. I think she's worried about some things, little one. Is it about me? Did I do something wrong?" Christopher sighed. Lily didn't deserve to live in that atmosphere of secrets and lies. "No, you didn't do anything wrong. Never did." That morning, Mrs. Davison arrived earlier than usual. Her expression showed the determination of someone who had finally decided to face a difficult situation. "Mr. Christopher, the time has come. I need to tell Lily the truth. Are you sure you're ready?" "No, but she deserves to know." They sat in the living room, with Lily between them on the couch. The girl immediately realized that something important was about to happen. "Lily, my dear," Mrs. Davison began, holding the girl's little hands, "remember when I told you I was your real grandma?" "I remember. You said I remembered you singing to me." "Well, I lied to you." The silence that followed was filled with confusion. Lily looked between Mrs. Davison and Christopher, trying to understand. "Lied how?" "I'm not your blood grandmother, my child. I never was." Mrs. Davison began to cry. "I made up that story because I fell in love with you, and I was afraid of losing you." Lily processed the information with the seriousness of a child who had already faced many disappointments in her short life. "So you're not my family?" "Not the way I said. But the love I feel for you is real, Lily, that I never lied about." "But why did you lie?" "Lying is wrong." The simple and direct question left Mrs. Davison without an answer for a few moments. How to explain to a 4-year-old the complex fears of an adult? Because sometimes adults do wrong things when they're afraid, and I was very afraid of being alone. Lily got up from the couch and walked to the window, looking at the backyard where she used to play. Christopher and Mrs. Davison waited for her reaction in silence. "Lily," Christopher said softly, "how are you feeling?" "Confused," she replied without turning around. "First my parents abandoned me, lying that they were coming back. Then Grandma Davison lied that she was my family. Everyone lies to me." The observation cut the hearts of the two adults. Mrs. Davison got up and approached the girl. "Lily, I know I can't undo what I did, but I can promise that I'll never lie to you again." "How can I believe you?" "You lied before, because now I'm telling the truth, even knowing that you might be angry with me and not want to talk to me anymore." Lily turned to look at Mrs. Davison. "Do you think I'm going to stop liking you?" "I don't know. I hope not. But I would understand if it happened." "I'm not going to stop liking you," Lily said finally. "But I'm sad that you lied." At that moment, Sarah arrived with Mikey for a visit. The situation between her and Dave was still tense after the revelation about paternity, but they were trying to rebuild trust in the relationship. Did we arrive at a bad time? Sarah asked, noticing the heavy atmosphere. Actually, you arrived at the right time, Christopher said. Lily has just heard some important truths. Sarah sat down with Mikey, who immediately reached out his little arms to Lily. The girl smiled for the first time that morning and picked up the baby. Aunt Sarah, does Mikey know that Uncle Dave isn't his blood daddy? The direct question surprised Sarah. No, he's still too young to understand those things. Why? Because he still likes Uncle Dave the same way, just like I'm going to keep liking Grandma Davison, even though she's not my real grandma. Lily's childish wisdom brought tears to the eyes of everyone present. The girl had intuitively understood that love didn't depend on blood ties. Lily, Mrs. Davison said, do you forgive me for lying? I forgive you, but you can't ever lie again. I promise. And do you still want to take care of me sometimes? Very much, if you want me to and if Mr. Christopher lets me. At that moment, more visitors arrived. It was Dave and Walter, who came to report on the developments of the case against Henry. We have good news, Walter announced. The district attorney has accepted all the evidence. Henry will be charged with corruption, extortion, and forgery of documents. And I, Christopher asked, you'll be called as a cooperating witness. Your participation in the crimes will be considered as coercion, especially with the evidence of Henry's threats. Dave approached Sarah and Mikey, and there's more news. What? She asked. I've decided to officially adopt Mikey. I want him to be my son legally, no matter who the biological father is. Sarah began to cry with emotion. Dave, are you sure? Absolutely. Mikey's been my son since day one. That's not going to change. Lily, who was watching everything, approached Christopher. Mr. Christopher, are you going to adopt me too? The question caught everyone by surprise. Christopher knelt down to her level. Would you like that? I'd like that very much. Then I'd be your real daughter, even if not by blood. Lily, adoption is something very serious. It means we'd be family forever. I want to be your family forever, Mrs. Davison approached. And can I still be her chosen grandma, even if I'm not blood-related? Christopher looked at Lily. What do you think, little one? I think a person can have a blood family and a chosen family, and sometimes the chosen family is better. Walter smiled. This girl is wiser than many adults I know. Then it's decided, Christopher said. I'll start the adoption process, and Mrs. Davison will officially be Lily's chosen grandma. And can I be a godmother? Sarah asked. Yes, Lily answered excitedly, and Mikey can be my chosen little brother. That afternoon, while everyone was celebrating the decisions made, Lily approached Mrs. Davison again. Grandma Davison, can I ask you a question? Of course, my dear. If you're not my pretend grandma anymore and you become my chosen grandma, does that mean you won't lie to me anymore? That means exactly that. Chosen grandmas only tell the truth. Okay, good. I like truths better, even when they're sad. Mrs. Davison hugged Lily tightly. Me too, my daughter. Me too. That night, after everyone had left, Christopher put Lily to sleep in his room, something she had requested after the emotionally intense day. Mr. Christopher, when I become your real daughter, can I call you Daddy? You can call me whatever you want, little one. Then I'll call you Daddy Christopher. And what will you call me? My dear daughter. I like that, Lily said, already almost asleep. Chosen family is the best thing in the world. Christopher watched her sleep, realizing how an abandoned child had completely transformed his life and the lives of all the people around him. Soon she would be officially his daughter, and he would be officially the father he had always wanted to be. 2 weeks after the confessions and decisions that changed the course of all the lives involved, Christopher was organizing documents for Lily's adoption process when he made a discovery that would once again shake the entire family structure they had built. It was a warm Saturday afternoon, and Lily was playing in the yard with Mikey, who Sarah had brought for a visit. The two made an adorable pair, she inventing stories and he reacting with smiles and babbling. "Daddy Christopher," Lily called. She had officially started calling him that since the previous week. "Does Mikey understand the stories I tell?" "Maybe not the words, but he understands that you love him," Christopher replied, leafing through a stack of papers that the social worker had requested. Among the documents was a birth certificate for Lily that Mrs. Davison had managed to locate through the city records. It was the first time Christopher had seen the girl's official document, and when he read the names of the parents, he felt as if the floor had opened beneath his feet. "It can't be," he murmured, rereading the document several times. Sarah, who was preparing a snack in the kitchen, heard the tone of astonishment in his voice. "Is something wrong, Christopher?" "Sarah, come here. I need you to confirm something for me." She approached, drying her hands on her apron. "What is it?" "Look at the name of Lily's mother on this certificate." Sarah read the document and paled. "Joaquina Santos. The same Joaquina Santos who worked for me for 3 years. The same one who abruptly resigned 5 years ago. But that would mean that Lily is the daughter of the Joaquina I knew, the woman who always talked about her little girl, but who never brought her to the office." Christopher sat heavily in the chair. "How didn't I make that connection before?" "Because you were dealing with your own memory loss and trauma, and Lily never mentioned her mother's full name." Christopher called Lily into the house. "Little one, I need to ask you some questions about your mom." "About my mom?" she asked, sitting on his lap with Mikey still in her arms. "Yes. Do you remember her full name?" "Joaquina. People called her Mrs. Santos." "And did she work?" "Yes, she did. She went to an office every day and talked about a very good boss that she liked a lot." Christopher's heart raced. She talked about her boss. She did. She said he was a good person, but very sad because his wife had gone to heaven. Lily's words confirmed his suspicions. Joaquina had really been his employee, and she had talked about him to her daughter. "Lily, did your mother say anything else about this boss? That she wanted to help him not be so sad, and that one day, when I grew up, she was going to take me to meet him." Sarah covered her mouth with her hands, understanding the magnitude of the revelation. "Christopher, this changes everything." "Daddy Christopher, why are you talking about my mom? Did something happen?" Christopher hugged Lily tightly. "Nothing bad happened, little one. It's just that I found out that I knew your mom a long time ago." "Knew her how?" "She worked for me. She was a very dear employee, and I missed her after she left." Lily was silent for a few moments, processing the information. "So you were the good boss that my mom talked about?" "It seems so." "That's so cool. Does that mean my mom already knew that you were going to take good care of me?" The innocence of Lily's observation brought tears to Christopher's eyes. Maybe she did. At that moment, Mrs. Davison arrived for her daily visit. When she saw the emotional expression on everyone's faces, she immediately became concerned. "Did something happen?" Christopher told her about the discovery. Mrs. Davison sat down slowly, clearly impacted by the revelation. "Mrs. Davison," Christopher said, "did you know Joaquina Santos?" "I did. She was a hard-working woman, always very polite, but she moved out of town a few years ago." "Do you know why?" Mrs. Davison hesitated. "Actually, there were some rumors at the time." "What rumors?" "That she was having family problems. Her sister Creusa drank a lot and caused trouble. Joaquina was always worried." "Creusa?" Sarah repeated. "That name is familiar to me." "It should be," Mrs. Davison said sadly. "Creusa Santos was found dead 3 months ago, a few days before Lily appeared in town." The silence that followed was filled with painful implications. Christopher began to connect the pieces of a tragic puzzle. "Mrs. Davison, are you sure about those dates?" "Absolutely. Creusa was found on a Monday morning, and Lily appeared in town on Wednesday of the same week." "That would mean that That Lily may have been with Creusa before ending up on the streets, Sarah completed. Christopher looked at Lily, who was playing distractedly with Mikey. Little one, do you remember living with an aunt before coming to the streets? Lily's face darkened immediately. Aunt Creusa was mean. She yelled a lot and drank bad things. And what happened to her? One day she didn't wake up anymore. I was alone for 2 days until some neighbors arrived. Then I ran and hid. The confirmation was devastating. Lily had lost her mother a long time ago, had lived with an aunt who clearly didn't take good care of her. And when that aunt died, she had become a street child. Why didn't you ever tell us this before? Christopher asked gently. Because you didn't ask, and because I don't like remembering Aunt Creusa. Mrs. Davison approached Lily. My dear, you suffered a lot before you came to us. But now I'm happy, Lily replied simply. I have a big family and everyone loves me. That afternoon, after Sarah and Mrs. Davison had left, taking Mikey with them, Christopher sat with Lily on the porch. Lily, now that I know I knew your mum, I can tell you more things about her. What things? That she was a very good person. She always talked about you with a lot of pride. She said you were the most important thing in her life. Did she talk about me to you? She did. She always said she had a beautiful and intelligent daughter. Why didn't she ever bring me to meet you? Christopher thought carefully about the answer. I think she wanted to, but life is sometimes complicated for adults. If my mom worked for you and liked you, and now you're taking care of me, does that mean she planned everything? Lily's question touched something deep in Christopher. Maybe there was indeed something of destiny in that whole encounter. Maybe she planned it, little one, in her own way. Then it was my mom who made you find me in that hole. It may have been. Lily smiled, satisfied with the explanation. I knew that my mom hadn't really abandoned me. She just went to take care of things so I could have a new family. That night, while Lily slept, Christopher kept thinking about all the coincidences that had led to that moment. Joaquina working for him. Lily being abandoned exactly in the town where he lived. The encounter in the storm drain that had changed all their lives. Maybe there really was a bigger plan in motion, a plan that had brought together a family that had chosen each other based on love instead of blood obligations. A month after the discovery about Joaquina having been Christopher's employee, one morning brought an unexpected visitor who would once again change Lily's destiny. A lady of approximately 70 years old appeared at the gate of the house, carrying a small suitcase and an expression of nervousness mixed with hope. Good morning, she said when Christopher answered. My name is Dolores Santos. I'm looking for a girl named Lily. I believe she might be my granddaughter. Christopher felt a chill in his stomach. After all of Mrs. Davison's lies about being the girl's grandmother, now someone was appearing claiming to be the real grandmother. Ma'am, can you explain this better? I'm Joaquina Santos's mother. I came from San Francisco when I heard that a child with my granddaughter's name had been found here in Harmony Creek. Christopher's heart raced. If that woman really was Joaquina's mother, then she would legitimately be Lily's grandmother. How did you find out about Lily? A social worker from San Francisco was investigating cases of missing children and found records that connected my daughter to this town. When they mentioned a 4-year-old girl named Lily, I came immediately. Christopher invited her in. Lily was in the yard playing with her dolls, oblivious to the fact that her life could drastically change in the next few minutes. Mrs. Santos, before anything else, I need to understand your story with Joaquina. The lady sat on the sofa, her hands trembling slightly. Joaquina was my youngest daughter. We had a terrible argument 6 years ago when she decided to leave Lily in the care of her sister Creusa to come work in another town. Why did you argue? Because I begged her to leave Lily with me instead of with Creusa. Everyone knew that Creusa had problems with drinking, but Joaquina said that Creusa was family and that she had an obligation to take care of her niece. Dolores began to cry. We fought badly. She left home saying she never wanted to see me again. And then? I lost contact completely. I didn't even know where she was working. I only found out that she had died when a neighbor told me, months later. Christopher processed the information. Mrs. Santos, Joaquina worked for me for 3 years. She never mentioned having a living mother. That doesn't surprise me. When Joaquina got angry, she cut off relationships completely. She was stubborn like that. At that moment, Lily ran into the room. "Daddy Christopher, who is this lady?" Dolores looked at the girl and immediately began to cry more intensely. My God, she's exactly like Joaquina when she was little. Lily approached with curiosity. "Why are you crying?" "Because you remind me a lot of someone I loved very much." "Of whom?" Christopher interjected. "Lily, this is Mrs. Dolores. She says she knew your mom." "Knew my mom how?" Dolores dried her tears. "I was her mother, my dear. That would make me your real grandmother." Lily looked confused between Dolores and Christopher. "But Grandma Davison is already my grandma. Not the blood one, but the chosen one." "Who is Mrs. Davison?" Dolores asked. Christopher explained the whole situation, how Mrs. Davison had lied about being Lily's grandmother, how they had discovered the truth, and how they had decided to keep a chosen family. "I understand," Dolores said thoughtfully. "And did this Mrs. Davison take good care of Lily?" "Very well. Despite the initial lie, her love for Lily is genuine." At that moment, as if she had sensed that she was being discussed, Mrs. Davison arrived for her daily visit. When she saw the unknown lady in the room, she immediately realized that something important was happening. "Good morning," she said hesitantly. "Mrs. Davison," Christopher said, "this is Mrs. Dolores Santos, Joaquina's mother." Mrs. Davison's face paled. "Lily's real grandmother?" "Yes," confirmed Dolores, studying Mrs. Davison carefully. "And you must be the lady who took care of my granddaughter when she needed it." Yes, I did what I could." To everyone's surprise, Dolores got up and hugged Mrs. Davison. Thank you for taking care of her when I couldn't." Mrs. Davison began to cry. "Mrs. Santos, I lied to her. I told her I was her grandmother because you loved her and wanted to protect her." "I understand perfectly." Lily watched the interaction between the two older women with fascination. "Grandma Dolores, does that mean I now have 2 grandmas?" "If you want, my dear. I don't see why a blood grandma and a chosen grandma can't coexist." "I want to!" Lily exclaimed. "2 grandmas are better than 1. During the rest of the morning, Dolores told stories about Joaquina that helped Lily get to know her mother better. She talked about how Joaquina was determined and hard-working, but also about how she was stubborn and proud. "Your mother made mistakes," Dolores said to Lily, "but everything she did was thinking about what she thought was best for you." "Grandma Dolores, did you come here to take me away?" The direct question left everyone silent. Dolores looked at Christopher, clearly assessing the situation. "Lily, I came here because I was worried about you. But I see that you have a family that loves you very much." "I do. I have Daddy Christopher, Grandma Davison, Aunt Sarah, Uncle Dave, and Mikey, who's my chosen little brother." "A big family," Dolores observed with a smile. "And now you have Grandma Dolores too." That afternoon, after Lily went to play in the yard, the 3 adults talked about the future. "Mrs. Santos," Christopher said, "I know you have legal rights over Lily. She's your biological granddaughter. And I know you've created a family based on love, not legal obligations." Dolores paused. "Mr. Caldwell, may I make a proposal?" "Of course." "What if I moved to Harmony Creek? I could rent a small room at Mrs. Davison's boarding house and be a part of this extended family you've created." Mrs. Davison perked up. "That would be wonderful. The boarding house has a vacant room, and I'd love the company. And that way," Dolores continued, "Lily would have 2 grandmothers present in her life, an adoptive father who loves her, and an extended family that protects her." "Mrs. Santos," Christopher said emotionally, "that would be perfect." When Lily heard the proposal, she was ecstatic. "Grandma Dolores is going to live near here, forever. If you want me to, my dear. I want it so much. That way I can learn more stories about Mum, and you too can teach me different things." That night, while Dolores settled into the boarding house with Mrs. Davison's help, Christopher put Lily to sleep. "Daddy Christopher, today was a very special day." "Why?" "Because I found out that Mom left me an even bigger family than I thought. Now I'm sure she planned everything perfectly." "How so?" "She knew that you were going to take good care of me. She knew that Grandma Davison was going to love me, and she knew that one day Grandma Dolores was going to find me." Lily smiled. "Mom was very smart." Christopher kissed the girl's forehead. "Your mother really was very special, and you're just like her. Daddy Christopher. Yes, thank you for taking care of Mom when she worked for you. I think that's why she knew you were going to take good care of me too." That night, Christopher sat on the porch, watching the stars, thinking about how a child abandoned in a storm drain had brought so many people together through love. Lily hadn't just found a family, she had created one. 6 months after all the revelations and changes, life in Harmony Creek had found a harmonious rhythm that no one had imagined possible. It was a sunny Saturday morning, and the entire extended family was gathered at Christopher's house to celebrate something very special, the officialization of Lily's adoption. The girl, now fully 5 years old, ran around the yard in a pink dress that Dolores had sewn especially for the occasion. Mikey, now a year old and walking with assistance, tried to follow her steps while laughing at her games. "Daddy Christopher!" Lily shouted, holding an official paper in her little hands. "Now it says that I'm your real daughter." Christopher picked her up, deeply moved. "Now it's official, my princess. You are Valentina Caldwell." "I like my new name, Valentina Caldwell Santos." "Santos?" he asked, confused. "Yes, Grandma Dolores said I can keep Santos too, so I don't forget about Mom." Christopher looked at Dolores, who smiled approvingly. In recent months, Lily's real grandmother had become a fundamental part of the family, bringing stories about Joaquina that helped the girl better understand her origins. "Valentina Caldwell Santos, then," Christopher said. "It's a beautiful and strong name." In the kitchen, Mrs. Davison and Dolores were preparing a special lunch together. The two women had become best friends, sharing not only the boarding house but also the care and love for Lily. "Mrs. Davison," Dolores said while seasoning the chicken, "when I think about how everything started with your lies, I can't help but laugh. I still feel guilty for having lied." "You shouldn't. If you hadn't lied, maybe we would never have discovered the whole truth, and most importantly, Lily wouldn't have had you taking care of her when she needed it most." Sarah arrived bringing Mikey, who immediately looked for Lily. The relationship between her and Dave had strengthened after they overcame the crisis of the revelation about paternity. Dave had formalized Mikey's adoption on the same day that Christopher had adopted Lily. "How are the two proud fathers doing?" Sarah joked, seeing Christopher and Dave watching the children play. "Nervous," Dave admitted. "I still can't believe that everything turned out so well." "And Henry? Any news?" Christopher asked. "He was sentenced to 3 years in prison and a heavy fine. His construction company was closed and his assets were confiscated to repair the environmental damage," replied Walter, who had arrived with the final documents of the case. "And my company, fully regularized. With the evidence of coercion, you were acquitted of the most serious charges. You'll have to pay an administrative fine, but nothing that compromises your future." Christopher sighed with relief. The last few months had been difficult from a legal point of view, but the conclusion of the case finally allowed him to focus on the future. "Uncle Walter!" Lily shouted, running to hug him. "Look at my new document!" Walter had become a secondary father figure in Lily's life, always bringing gifts and telling stories about his own family. "Very beautiful, little one. Now you are officially part of the Caldwell family." "And Santos," she corrected. I can't forget about Mom. During lunch, the conversation flowed naturally among all those present. Lily talked about her new school, where she had excelled both academically and socially. Mikey babbled, trying to participate in the conversation, to everyone's delight. "Daddy Christopher," Lily said suddenly, "can I tell everyone something?" "Of course, love. This morning I dreamed about Mom." The table fell into respectful silence. Lily rarely talked about Joaquina, and when she did, everyone paid special attention. "And what did she say in the dream?" Dolores asked softly. "She said she was very happy, because I had found a big family that loves me very much, and that she knew that Daddy Christopher was going to take good care of me, because he was the good boss that she liked." "Anything else?" Mrs. Davison asked. "She said that now she can rest in peace, because she knows that I am safe and happy." The silence that followed was filled with emotion. Everyone understood that somehow Lily had found peace with the loss of her mother. "And you know what else?" she continued. "In the dream, Mom was smiling because she saw that I don't just have one dad and one mom, but a whole family." "A whole family like what?" Sarah asked. "Daddy Christopher, Grandma Davison, Grandma Dolores, Aunt Sarah, who is like my mom at heart, Uncle Dave, who teaches me about mechanics, Mikey, who's my little brother, and Uncle Walter, who tells the best stories." "And we all love you very much," Christopher said, moved. "I know, and I love you too, each in a different way, but a lot." After lunch, while the children played in the yard and the adults talked on the porch, Dolores approached Christopher. "Mr. Caldwell, may I make a confession?" "Of course, Mrs. Santos. When I came here, my intention was to take Lily back to San Francisco with me. And what changed your mind?" "I saw the love in your eyes when you look at her. I saw how safe and loved she feels. And most importantly, I saw that here she has something that I alone could never give. A complete family. Mrs. Santos, you are a fundamental part of this family." "I know. And that's exactly why I made the right decision by staying here." At that moment, Lily ran over. "Grandma Dolores, Grandma Davison, come play with us." The two ladies got up smiling. "Let's go, my dear." While watching his daughter play with the whole family in the yard, Christopher reflected on the past 8 months. It had all started with an abandoned child finding an injured man in a storm drain. Now that same child had created a network of love and protection that included people who didn't even know each other before. "What are you thinking about?" Sarah asked, approaching him. "About how a 4-year-old girl managed to bring so many people together through love. Children have that magic. They teach us what really matters." "Daddy Christopher," Lily called, "come play with us." He joined the group in the yard, where they were playing a circle game. Lily insisted that everyone participate, including Mikey, whom she held by his little hands. "Now let's sing the family song," she announced. "What family song?" Dave asked. "One that I made up." "Do you want to hear it?" Everyone made a circle while Lily, with her crystal-clear voice, began to sing. "Family isn't just who you're born with. Family is who you choose with your heart. Daddy, mommy, grandma, grandpa, uncle, aunt, brother, sister, everyone together in one house. That's what a real family is." When she finished, everyone applauded, deeply touched. Lily's simple song had perfectly captured the essence of what they had built together. "Was it pretty, wasn't it?" she asked, proud. "Beautiful," Christopher replied, hugging her, "just like you." That night, after everyone had left, Christopher put Lily to sleep in her room, now officially decorated as a girl's room, with pink wallpaper and white furniture that Dolores had helped choose. "Daddy Christopher, today was the best day of my life." "Why?" "Because today I became your real daughter on paper. But in my heart I already was since the day you found me in that hole." "Lily, can I tell you a secret?" "Yes." "The day I found you, I was very lost and sad. You saved me as much as I saved you. So we saved each other?" "Exactly. That's what a real family is, isn't it, Daddy?" "It is, my princess. That's exactly it." While Lily fell asleep, Christopher watched her for a few minutes. An abandoned child had become the center of a family that had chosen each other. And in that family, love prevailed over all the lies, secrets, and difficulties. Outside, the moon illuminated the town of Harmony Creek, a silent witness to a story that began with suffering and ended with hope, love, and the certainty that family is much more than blood ties. It's a daily choice to love, protect, and be present in each other's lives. Valentina Caldwell Santos slept peacefully, finally sure that she had found her place in the world, in the heart of a family that loved her unconditionally. If you liked this wonderful story, please comment. Your opinion is very important. And if you love beautiful stories, subscribe to my channel. I promise to make your day better with my videos.